All right, folks, it is Friday, May 29th, 2025. And of course, a lot of things are going on in the world. We'll be talking about those and seeing what folks have to say about them and all along those lines. Stocks and dollars rally as Trump tariffs hit the court roadblock. So, tariffs and Trump's entire economic agenda were just thrown into chaos, according to what CNN is reporting. And in the BBC, Faisal Islam tariff rulings completely changes the global trade war. So we'll see how this all plays out and all along those lines. And Elon Musk, distant from Trump, says he's exiting Washington and Doge. Elon Musk bids farewell as official Trump administration role comes to an end. Musk confirms his exit from the Trump administration amid image rehab tour. So back at SpaceX, Musk says in an interview, Doge became DC's whipping boy. So that's what he's saying about what Doge did and all along those lines. U.S. will aggressively revoke visas of Chinese students, Rubio says. So that is something else that is going on in the world that people will be talking about. And like I said, I think I have a couple of neighbors that are of Chinese descent that are attending the university here. So we'll see if it impacts them. Might even try to have some conversation with them, maybe even have a conversation with them here on this network at some point or another as well. Four Palestinians die in a storming of Gaza UN food warehouse. IDF was not in the area. So definitely some folks are asking how the Gaza aid distribution turmoil unfolded. So Gaza aid system under pressure as thousands are seeking food. So that is definitely something that is in the news as well. And man remains missing after a Swiss glacier collapsed and destroyed 90% of an alpine village. So that is something that is being reported out of the Swiss area. And Israel announces a major new expansion of settlements in occupied West Bank. So Israel approves the new settlements to obstruct a Palestinian state. Israel cabinet approves construction of 22 new settlements, some deep in the West Bank. So that is something that is going to be part of the Middle East conversation as well. And Russia appears to launch a new offensive in Ukraine amid peace talks. So Ukraine sounds warning over Russian troops massing at the front line. Russia apparently is massing over 50,000 troops for an offensive on northeastern Ukraine, according to what Zelensky is saying. So Russia's summer offensive could spark a new humanitarian crisis in Ukraine. And a South African mother was given a life sentence for trafficking her 6-year-old daughter. So Jocelyn Smith's mother, Kelly, is jailed for kidnapping and selling her in South Africa. And there were tears and heartbreak over the tragic story of the South African girl sold by her mother and all along those lines. And a driver has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after the Liverpool soccer parade tragedy. So a 9-year-old was among those injured in the Liverpool parade tragedy. Police given more time to question parade suspects as of yesterday. So definitely that is something that is still continuing in the news as well. And Israeli airstrikes target Yemen airport as Netanyahu warns Houthis and Iran. Israel strikes Yemen's main airport again after those Houthis attacks. So Israel attacks Yemen's Sinai airport. Houthis say that won't deter Gaza support. So that is something else that people are talking about in the news. And Portugal's Chega party becomes the main opposition and joins Europe's far right surge. So far right Chega party became the main opposition in Portugal's parliament. So that's something going on as Portugal's far right Chega shatters a 50-year two-party dominance. And how much does a Russian drone attack on Ukraine cost? That is what some folks are asking as well. And Ukraine has submitted a ceasefire plan, but Russia responds with escalation. And Merz says Germany will step up Ukraine weapon support as Zelensky visits. So Germany's Merz is offering to help Ukraine develop its own long-range missiles to hit Russia. And Canada's wildfires forced 17,000 to evacuate with smoke blowing toward the U.S. So Canada wildfires, thousands in Manitoba ordered to evacuate as state of emergency is declared. So they've got some wildfires going on there in Canada as well. So definitely that's one of the news stories that we're hearing about as well. Like I said, there's been this conversation about the Trump tariffs and some of the things going on in the court, as apparently the futures gained as the court blocked some of Trump's tariffs and all in that space. And definitely we'll see how this all plays out and what folks have to say about that as well. And at Harvard says many of its foreign students are seeking to transfer. So Harvard graduation, Trump administration, international students ban case hearing. So definitely looks like some people are asking, will Trump's ban on Harvard enrolling foreign students hold up in court? So, and some people are even talking about, particularly like in the Washington Post and other papers, and we've even mentioned it here, how much international students contribute to the U.S. economy. So definitely we'll see how this all goes. And Harvard agrees to relinquish early photos of enslaved people. Harvard relents after a protracted fight over slave photos. So it relinquishes photographs of enslaved people in historic settlements. So it looks like Harvard would turn over the photos of enslaved ancestors, ending that long legal battle. So definitely Harvard's involved in a number of legal battles. So we'll see how this all plays out. And Trump's clemency spree extended to an ex-gangster, an artist, and a former congressman. So the list of Trump's latest pardons and computations include Larry Hoover and NBA YoungBoy. So NBA YoungBoy was pardoned by Trump. So definitely there are some pardons going on as well. So that is something that folks are being able to talk about. And the CDC is blindsided as RFK Jr. changes COVID-19 vaccine recommendations. U.S. will no longer recommend COVID shots for children and pregnant women. Want a COVID vaccine? Then, according to the USA Today, it could cost you $200. So it might even be costing some money. So that is something that RFK Jr. has got going on as well. And judge says Rubio likely violated the Constitution in ordering the deportation of anti-Israeli ringleader Mahmoud Khalil. So judge says Trump's bid to deport Mahmoud Khalil is unconstitutional. And Trump confirms he told Netanyahu to back off Iran strikes amid nuclear talks. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the world and around the world and all along those lines. I'm going to see, I've got John. Maybe John can tell me a little bit about these wildfires. So I know that, John, what's going on with those wildfires in Canada? I did report those, and I do know that that is one of the Canadian news stories. And then I've got another thing that you might be interested to know about when it comes to Trump and his one of his main allies. But what's going on with the wildfires?
No, I just saw the news like you did. Looks like there's fires just like last year and I believe the previous summer.
Okay.
So I have a friend up in Kenora, and not far from he sees the smoke. A number of years ago, I went to visit Calgary, and there was smoke as well that summer coming in from the west. Just a consequence of climate change.
Yeah, definitely the consequence of climate change. I don't know if you saw it or you heard what I said, but apparently, and I think some people have been speculating on this, Elon Musk is backing off of his government role, and he's even saying that Doge was the whipping boys of Washington. So the bromance between him and Trump may be ending because apparently he's going on a kind of like a tour, media tour, and everything to reform his image that was very much that being a supporter of the current president at one point or another. But I don't know if you saw that or what your thoughts are around that. We've also got Rick and Dr. Sharif with us as well. But definitely that is something that I did see where he was apparently backing off and he called Doge the whipping boys of Washington.
Well, it's just again spinning away. I'm waiting for all the fraud that that team has found. Again, I'm saying sarcastically. So
Yep.
we'll wait and see, I guess. To me, it's all a way of getting personal data that they're going to use in some way. Down the road, we shall see.
We shall
Oh,
see, and everything like that. It makes a lot of sense. We'll see if that is the case or not the case, and everything along those lines. Hey, Rick, one of the things that I talked about earlier, and you've been warning about it, and everything like that. But RFK Jr. and they're saying CDC was blindsided, has changed the COVID-19 vaccine recommendation, so they no longer are going to recommend COVID shots for children and pregnant women. I didn't know that COVID vaccines could be as much as $200 and everything, and definitely they are looking at some other things that could be harmful in this whole notion
Well,
of
we're about to get hit with a new variant,
right.
1.8.1 out of Hong Kong, and it's already lit up San Francisco and Hawaii. So it's coming eastward, and it's going to light up California and the rest of the West Coast, and then move through the country. So COVID's not done. We're not done with frickin' COVID. This symptom of the new strain is razor blade throat, which doesn't sound super comfortable.
That does
But
not sound that doesn't sound
when you
comfortable at
look at,
all.
so we're in year 6 of COVID.
Right.
When the peaks are lower, the peaks keep, they go, 2021, 2020, they were high, but the peaks keep getting more shallow, but the valleys are the same. We're not cleaning COVID up. We're not making it go away. There's a reservoir of people who have it that uh, lets it, when we get hit with a new strain, it travels through the population again.
That makes sense. Hey, Dr. Sharice, how bad is the COVID there in Bangladesh? Is it picking back up, or is it totally under control? And how is your government handling it? Because, like I said, here there are some people that are actually not going to be encouraged to get it, and all along those lines, meaning the shots. But how is it being handled in Bangladesh?
Okay, very good questions. Honestly speaking, COVID uh, situations, I do not see uh, any bad impact right now in Bangladesh. Uh, it may be the reason that we have some natural issues, natural resilience, and all of the things in our body. Uh, that may be one of the cause. But I'm more concerned about the healthcare issues and all of the things. Uh, Actually, I just want to say that our healthcare need to improve a lot. Yes, our government and the private sector, they are trying to develop our healthcare. They are doing a lot of initiative, and more more specifically the private sector, they're trying to bring good treatment and all of the things in Bangladesh. Recently China planned to develop a hospital in Bangladesh, uh, 3 or 4 hospital. That is the way that our healthcare is improving or getting solutions. But Bangladesh communication community has heavy engagement with India in terms of healthcare. But recently we have tension in between Bangladesh and India. India do not giving visa to Bangladesh peoples to get treatments in India. That's why our government heavily engaging with this China to solve these healthcare related things. And if you see the pandemics until May in Bangladesh, uh, I find that over 2 million people since pandemic begins, they have COVID. It's a confirmed case. And total death around 30,000 people died in Bangladesh until May 2025, when actually 2020 COVID come. And a recent daily case, I am observing around 18 reports on the latest available day. Every day, 18 people has COVID and all of the things. And another thing is JN1 variants. I think this is another problematic issues. But from my side, I know we will share our content with this Bangladesh community, with this our country policymaker and all of the people. I still request my community people wear mask in crowded place, maintain hand hygiene, stay updated with the vaccination, and seek medical attention if experience symptoms. That's all from my side. Thank you. It's a very, very good question.
No problem. Hey, I see we've been joined by Shaquille. One of the things we're talking about is definitely Rick was saying there's a new variant and there are new rules about how to handle COVID that are coming from RFK Jr. So how are things going in Australia? Is there any new pickup of a new variant, and is there any concern about a resurgence in the COVID situation?
Well, I actually just got back, so I haven't really had much of a chance to watch the Australian media. I am aware that CDC has removed the recommendation for it. Look, I don't know. I normally get 2 flu vaccines every year because it's a different variant for the Northern Hemisphere. So I normally get 2. I haven't been travelling that much during COVID, so I haven't had them. But look, I think it's a decision that people have to make themselves. What I am concerned about, and John will probably agree with me on this, is one of you guys just said that the COVID vaccines are available for $200.
That's what
Yeah, so we just go to the doctor, or sometimes you can actually just go to the pharmacist, and it's free, or it's very little. So this is something that I've talked about before, that the US, if it wants to have the same sort of lifestyle as enjoyed by most people living in other Western countries, they've got to fix their tax system and they've got to fix their social services funding, because there is just frequently not enough money to fund things that you guys should be able to take for granted. I mean, I had no idea it was $200 for a COVID vaccine in the United States. That's outrageous.
Yeah, that's totally outrageous and everything. I agree with
Well,
you.
it hasn't been for most people, I guess, until now.
Right. Yeah, the prices went up.
But it's even other things like I've been hearing. I think it was in the election campaign that Joe Biden had said something about insulin prices being brought down from a few $100 a month to $40 a month, things like that. These things are covered by our Medicare. We've got a Medicare levy here in Australia. Canada does it a little bit differently, and like if you're in BC, for example, they pay a little bit differently with their taxes. But the United States, it's a similar culture. You've got a good economy under anybody. It doesn't matter if Democrats or Republicans are in control. Even if the economy is falling, you've got a robust economy. I think that this is something that needs to be fixed, and it needs to be a bipartisan thing where they just sort the issues out. And there's many countries that they can model their system on.
We're not in a position to fix anything right now. I mean, with RFK Jr. Running, whatever the hell he runs, where the government, half the government, is very anti-vax. RFK apparently doesn't believe in the germ theory of disease. He doesn't know he thinks diseases come from, sandwiches with white bread.
Look, I'm not going to comment directly on RFK's views. The government's bigger than just RFK. But I'll also remind you that it was left-wing thinking not that long ago about eating healthier, less processed food, etc. That was something that was like the lefties were all doing. You go to California and they're all having these wonderful salads. Now all of a sudden that's being embraced by people on the centre right. Now all of a sudden it's a heretical conspiracy theory. But the issue at hand
is horseshoe theory, that the lunatics on the left and the lunatics on the right tend to wrap around and meet.
Well, why is it being a lunatic to say that you'd like to consume healthier food?
No, that is sensible, but to do that, to believe in that, and then also believe that vaccines are dangerous and that you shouldn't vaccinate. It's not the belief. Of course, we should have healthier food. It's the beliefs that a lot of the people, the healthy food people, have along with that healthy food belief.
Okay, so let me just say, I wasn't bringing this up specifically about vaccines. I was talking about your healthcare system.
Right.
Your healthcare system, the cost of medications, and the cost of just going to hospital in the United States, I think is outrageous. You guys are spending almost double as a percentage of the GDP. You're spending almost double what every other country spends on their healthcare. And I would argue, I hear Americans, especially the right wingers, that say American healthcare is the best in the world. Well, look, for some people, maybe it is in some cases. But I don't think that the healthcare system in the United States is dramatically better than Canada's or Australia's or Germany's. You know what I mean? So the way to fix this, it can be fixed, and it has to be Republicans and Democrats getting together and actually solving how this is going to be funded in a way that makes it accessible for everybody, affordable, and fair.
Yeah, Shaquille, speaking of that and speaking of things that is another issue, and I mentioned I've got neighbors, I wouldn't say that we're best of friends, but I might say hello to them and everything like that. But I'm just wondering, this is for everybody, because most of you, at least three of you, are from other parts of the world and everything. What is y'all's thoughts around the universities being targeting people from other countries and wanting them to not be here? Because it looks like Rubio is specifically going after Chinese students and everything like that. And like I said, I've got two neighbors upstairs, and I wouldn't say that we're friends, but we're at least acquaintances because I say hello to them and everything. And they are of Chinese descent, and I think they're either working or attending Duke University. So, what is your thoughts around this specific targeting of foreign nationals?
So was that for me or was that for everyone?
Anybody?
I'll go first.
Yes.
I'll say this. I think it's a dangerous move, personally, and the damage to the United States is going to be what you just saw with your agricultural products. There are other countries around the world that have a relationship with a very big population that there is in China. So when the tariff wars were happening and still are happening, China started to import Australian beef and Australian lamb and New Zealand lamb and stuff like that. So if Chinese students don't feel as though they're going to have much security with their visas, etc., going to the United States, then they're going to look to go to places like Canada. They're going to look to go to places like the UK and Western Europe, Australia, etc. And so we'll just increase the amount of students that we can all take, and we'll earn the money that otherwise would have gone to the United States. So I think that's a dangerous point.
I'm looking at a chart from the Economist, which measures the change in web page views for PhD programs. Australia has had the greatest increase in the past year. You guys, web page views from people who want to study for their doctorate, up 43%. So you guys are set up to benefit the most if interest is any indication. The U.S. down 27%. The largest drop of any country on this. So Australia up, Switzerland number 2 up more than 40%, Italy up 39%, Sweden up 22%, the U.S. down 27%. And yeah, we're going to lose a ton of scientists. The EU has a $500 million program to, I don't know how they're doing it, social media or grants or whatever, that says, hey, nervous scientists, come to us.
Before I put something on chat, there was one political party in America that is against, I think, what you were alluding to, Shaquille, was the value in going to universal health care system in America. Right now, as of right now, there's only one party in the States that is against that. I won't have to state the obvious.
I just love the continuous and continual Republican and centre-right political party bashing that goes on Pod TV.
No, but you talked about the quote-unquote before. Hold on. You talked about quote-unquote the left before. All I'm stating as a fact, as of right now, the GOP is against universal care. I agree 100% that somehow, some way, the states should find a way. As of right now, I don't think that's possible.
Okay.
In the current makeup of the political system.
Okay, but John, I didn't say the United States should switch to a universal health care. That's not what I said. I said that the Republicans and Democrats need to get together in order to solve the solution. Now, I'm not going to make this a healthcare debate. I've expressed on several other shows ideas that I think would be worth exploring for the United States. You go to last time I was in California, I heard people arguing about whether single payer or universal healthcare would be better. What difference does that make? You could have multi-payer universal. You could have all sorts of other systems. I think that actually what would work best for the United States is something similar to the Swiss the Swiss healthcare system because it works with the existing infrastructure they already have. So, yes, there is some disagreement between Republicans and Democrats, but I'd also like to remind you that Joe Biden himself, when he was the VP and back when he was a senator, actually opposed universal healthcare on the grounds that it would hurt the healthcare that unions had fought for and won, and would mean that some of their costs would go up or they'd have some of their healthcare removed. So the pendulum has swung all over the place on these issues. All I'm saying is that they both need to get together, because I think this is one of the biggest issues that are facing Americans, and it's the biggest cause of unhappiness amongst Americans, is that they don't have access to healthcare, education, etc. Okay, that needs to be resolved. Now, I say that and I'm a right-wing lunatic. Well, I don't know what the left is going for, but I don't think I'm a right-wing lunatic here.
Well, I mean, right. I believe that the Democrats are shitty at a bunch of stuff, but I believe, like with the Republican budget, which cuts Medicare by what, $750 billion, and it'll knock, the numbers are all over the place, but will at the very least knock millions of people out of their health care. That's a Republican thing.
That's a Donald Trump thing at the moment, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
But he's doing other things, like he's insisted, for example, with pharmaceuticals, that they sell to the American market at the same price as the lowest price they sell to foreign countries.
Well, that's a good thing if it's enforceable, if he can get them to actually comply.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because, like I said, North Carolina is a major pharmaceutical area. I mean, we've got GlaxoSmithKline, I think Pfizer is here, and a number of others, and it's oftentimes difficult to get them to comply with whatever the rules are, because they're all about the profit side of pharmaceuticals. And I mean,
but they're about the profit side of pharmaceuticals in America. Where's the sense in this, right? These big pharmaceutical companies, obviously, they do their own research, but they also rely on research which is done by universities. They have a lot of research which is funded by government, by US government. Mm-hmm. Then they turn around and sell that medication at multiples of the price that they sell the medication to. They sell it at multiples in the United States of what they sell it to say, New Zealand, who hasn't contributed to that research at all. Where's the sense in that? I think that's a big thing about this America First agenda, is people in America saying, hey, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah. Speaking of that, Shakil, just on a slightly same issue, but not totally, but I kind of mentioned it earlier, and I mentioned to John and Rick, but what is your take on this kind of pullback from Elon towards Trump and everything like that? Because it does seem like he's trying to go on these media tours, and basically he's saying that Doge is, and we've talked about Doge several times on this network. We have George Walker. We have the show on economics and everything like that, and all along those lines. And I know that he, to some degree, was a supporter of Doge, but now Elon is saying that Doge is a whipping boy of the Washington
there's
elite.
A couple things going on. One is, there's a little bit of separation between Musk and Trump now. Another thing is there's a mandate, there's a rule. You can't serve more than 130 days in a capacity as an appointed federal, authority. You can't work for the government more than 130 days without being, confirmed by Congress. Today is day, I think, 130, so he has to leave regardless.
I don't think he really intended to be there forever anyway, and obviously his investments in Tesla and SpaceX and all of that are far more profitable, presumably. Look, Tesla car sales have taken a dramatic hit because of the viciousness of the left, is what I'm going to call it, as you guys keep railing on Republicans, by going around and putting Nazi symbols into Teslas and all this sort of stuff. So, their sales are down. I think I've made the comment before about celebrities when they jump up and endorse a political candidate. It can often be quite damaging to their brand, because then you've upset half of the population. So what Elon Musk has done is he's cozied up to Donald Trump. He's made these large donations to his election campaign. He's put himself in Doge and cut funding, which is always going to upset a few people. And that has had a direct result on his sales of motor vehicles and other things. So he does have to rehabilitate his image somewhat, but I'm sure that he'll be able to do that reasonably well.
Yeah, since you said that about the Hollywood elite and everything like that, because I did see a quote recently where I think it was Kevin Costner, who was known for a movie that has Durham ties, Bull Durham, and everything like that, as well as Dancing with the Wolves, that he actually was saying that that was one of the mistakes that Hollywood has made, was being too much trying to be on the political agenda. Not that Dancing with the Wolves didn't have some political agenda to it, because that was a movie about the Native Americans and all along those lines. But he did definitely say that they needed to maybe steer away from some of that. And that was a recent thing. I think it was as recently as yesterday that I heard that quote, and I'm trying to pull it up so I can give y'all
Well, look,
that quote.
I think Hollywood, can be a reflection of society. It can certainly be a reflection of some level of politics. And there's been some great movies. I mean, A Time to Kill, for example, when did that come out? Like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, something like that. Very important film. It was really well done. But sometimes you want to turn on the TV or watch a movie, for escapism, and you don't really want a whole heap of politics shoved down your throat. And that's the thing that I would suggest, is that sometimes they need to just ease up a little bit. You don't need to tell people all day, every day, that they're racist and sexist and homophobic and they're terrible people and they're privileged. You don't need to just keep drumming at them like that, because eventually they'll just go, look, I'm sick of that. I don't want to watch it anymore.
So Hollywood is on the side of making money, and I've watched 2 high school teen sex comedies in the past week, and they're both about gay kids trying to lose their gay virginity, of lesbian girls, and it's surprising. And I thought they were kind of slapped together movies, in that the jokes weren't that funny. The plotting was, that it could have been a more quality production, but obviously somebody is slapping these movies. I think they were both from the same production company. They're making these movies because somebody has decided that people will pay money or to either stream them or go to the theater and see them. So for some,
I don't think they care very much anymore. That's the problem. I mean, people often forget that the lobbying industry, when people hear that, they refer to Washington and lobbying politicians, but the lobbying that goes on in the entertainment industry is significantly more funded than the political lobby groups. And so oftentimes they can make a movie and lose money on it because that wasn't what they were trying to do. They weren't trying to make the money from ticket sales. They're trying to make the money by pushing a message and having donations from lobbying groups.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not aware of that. I'm just aware that, like, the production of TV and movies in Los Angeles is down 40% because the guys who make $150 million a year for running these companies have figured out somehow that they don't make any additional money by making all these additional productions. So those guys, the David Zaslavs of the world, these billionaires, I think they mostly care about money. I don't know that lobbyists are paying Zaslav, who 1 year, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, he, with bonuses, he made $400 million. I don't know that guy can be influenced by lobbyists when
everyone can be influenced, but also he didn't make it in cash, right? He made it in stocks and options and all that sort of stuff. Right?
Stocks, options, and salary, but yeah.
So, but look, the other thing with Los Angeles and California in general is that the whole world wants to compete for the very lucrative production money, and so Louisiana, Georgia, in the United States give some great, or last time I was there, they were giving some great tax incentives and tax breaks. A lot of stuff is shot up in Toronto, Vancouver, places like that in Canada for the same reason. A lot of back office production now, or post production work is being done in places like India and the Philippines, and in all these different places around the world. Because hey, if you can employ 10 or 20 people for the same price as employing one person in California. So that happens, and it's not just because these greedy capitalists are just trying to make more money. It's a result of things being competitive, and of course you look for cost savings, and that's a result of California's success. It's not actually a result of California doing something wrong necessarily. It's a result of California's success that you're going to lose some of those industries, some of
Well,
those
also
businesses.
California and Los Angeles got complacent and said, we're the headquarters of entertainment. We don't have to offer tax incentives. Well, you frickin' do. And California hasn't always been the headquarters of entertainment. It used to be New York City, and market conditions shifted to make LA the center of it, but that they can shift again, and they are, and LA needs to get its crap together.
Well, when you vote Republicans back in, they'll do exactly what they did last time, because it was Republicans in control of California when that big, great boom in the entertainment industry happened in LA. Right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was the initial boom where everybody moved west 120 years ago because Thomas Edison was being a dick, and they needed to get away from his goons who would break your cameras if they caught you shooting with non-Edison cameras in New York City. So everybody said, let's just get the hell out of here. They came to LA. They thought, well, the sun shines here 350 days a year. They built all these studios that didn't even have roofs because they just used daylight to light their sets. So that was a boom. So I'm sure we've had like half a dozen mini booms and busts. And I don't know if it's all Republicans because we're talking tax. I guess.
I was taking a cheap shot, Rick. I'm being playful, but look, the other big issue I think for entertainment and music is the intertwining that has happened with organised crime and mafia figures and all the rest of it, as well as something that still goes on today, although it's hopefully getting a little bit better, is the mistreatment of young people in the industry. Having child stars that grow up and they're just miserable and they have drug problems and all that sort of stuff. So, a lot of those things need to. I think it's improving. I think in some way the big corporates getting involved, much like Vegas, it's pushed out a lot of that organised crime. But, there's a lot of allegations that some of Hollywood film productions are being used to launder money and all that sort of stuff. And, actors and other talent that are supposed to get a percentage of the profits of the film end up, what do they call it, Hollywood accounting, where, no, we actually... we took $400 million at the box office, but we actually lost $10 million, so you're not getting anything.
You never take net points. You're going to get 2% of the profits because they can do the math. They can fudge the math. So some, movies can be successful for 20 years, and even 20 years later, they haven't broken even yet. You take gross points, which is whatever dollars, you get a chunk of every dollar that comes in.
Mm.
Just a quick note. I know you were joking, Shaquille, but obviously Hollywood wasn't, the past. It didn't have a particular partisan identity. It was a bunch of businessmen trying to make money.
Yeah, no, actually, I was just mucking around because politics changes over time. I've said for a while now that I think California will likely turn red in the next 10 or 15 years, maybe 20. But around about the same time, I would suggest that you'll probably start seeing Texas go blue. I think those things will flip around about the same time as each other.
Yeah, Texas has been purple in the past. They've had Democrats as governors. Ann Richards, 30 years ago was a Democrat.
Look, and in my lifetime, California was a pretty solid red state, and then it flipped to blue, and it's been pretty solidly blue.
Right, we had Reagan.
These things flip back and forth. Just take, a generation at a time. So.
Yeah, no doubt about that and everything.
When
Nick is joining us. Hold on a second. Nick is joining us. Let's see what Nick's got to say about all of these different things. So Nick is joining us from here and all along those lines.
Welcome back to the United States, Nick.
I have joined you from the water.
You have joined us. Where are you at now?
He's back in the US. I was trying to call him and Kimberly yesterday to welcome him back.
But where in the U.S. is he?
I
Is
am
what
back
I was
in the
asking.
United States of America, and I'm at the very...
Your voice is cutting in and out.
Yeah, I think you've got a crappy internet connection.
Mark, the WYDuke.
You're at the Wazoo.
Duke University.
All right. Yes, you're over at Duke.
You guys know where that is, right? See? With beautiful background, everything.
Just around the corner.
Yeah. Yep, so I'm hanging out just around the corner. Yeah, and I'm going to see you tomorrow, Mark.
Yes.
maybe even today, who knows, depending on our schedule. So what's on the roundtable internet stuff?
Well, today
Okay.
we're talking about Hollywood,
My bandwidth is
and we're
strong.
also talking about Doge. So
Okay, well, just in
I
case
said
you
we.
don't know, on the Lawyer's Den, we had the lawyers that the Lawyer's Den, we had the attorneys that represented. I need to find a better location because their thing sucks here, the bandwidth. Anyway, Donald Trump lost his case.
Yes.
Voss versus Donald Trump, and before the United States Court of International Trade. The lawyer that represented the plaintiffs that kicked Donald out was on our TV show Lawyer's Den a couple days ago. And I've got to find a better location because my bandwidth here at this particular hotel is just not doing very well. You know, I keep getting knocked off, and I don't like it. The place where I'm at in Spain, I got great internet. But here, internet not so good. You guys in the United States need to become a first world country, you know, and get your internet.
You're always yelling at
together, or
Jacoby
people like
that
me, I'm in
that
Spain.
broadband for all is a boondoggle.
You know, you could
Yeah, I know, but see,
instead of Canada, instead of Canada becoming the 51st state of the United States, perhaps you guys could become I've forgotten how many provinces there are, but yeah, perhaps the US could be like the 7th or 8th province of Canada. Maybe that'd be better for you.
Yeah, and we'd like to buy the White House as well.
No.
No, you guys, you guys burned the White House down once already. We'll just keep you away from that.
Why would when you guys came and burned the White House? Do you remember that, John? That's how nice you Canadians are. You actually sent
Yeah, I wasn't even a gleam in my dad's eye.
and burned our was not a thing.
Well, Nick, that's what happens
Just
when
like-
you muck around in Canada. When you muck around in Canada, those of us that are in Commonwealth countries say, "Hey, even if we have our own arguments with Canada, we say, right, knock it off. We're all coming for you." So that's what happened. Don't touch Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Nick,
true.
I have some comment for you.
But well, the thing is, yeah, what is it, Sharif?
Yeah. Nick, like how you roll this Pod TV, I think each and every episode has a good connections with Trump administration decision making, because recently we just see that you do not like the Chinese student in Harvard University, and Trump say we will revoke all of the
I
visa
don't
of Chinese
care.
students.
Hey, listen, Sharif, I don't really care what Trump says for this reason. Here's the reality. As soon as the bandwidth works, okay. Trump will be gone, and Pod TV will still be here. Of course, my internet might not be working. I'm in a really bad spot. Okay. So there's Jatovi. Hopefully I see Jatovi tomorrow because then I can argue with him live in person. But let me tell you something. Here's the reality. In 3 years, Trump will be gone. In 3 years, Pod TV will still be here. We'll be bigger, badder, and stronger, and he'll be gone. He'll be history. He'll be something you read in a textbook. Okay? So that's the reality here about my internet. My internet's flaky here.
But you are in
there
America,
went
right?
Mark.
Like, how do you not have
He's gone.
internet? You guys keep telling us you invented it, and you don't have it.
What happened? Oh, they don't have good internet here. No, I mean, it's obvious. And you guys come in better in Australia. You know, obviously Bangladesh has good internet connection. United States of America, they need
Yeah. Nick,
to get their
like-
act together and start having better internet. Yeah, Rick.
So a court voided this court voided Trump's tariffs. It was a 3-judge panel, unanimous, including a judge appointed by Trump. The pre-market, the futures market,
Court of International.
the pre-market went
Trade.
crazy. That everything jumped up 1%. And now people are, I don't know, rethinking that, and the markets are pretty level. That I guess they think that Trump will deal, and that at some judicial level the tariffs will survive? Is that what the market is thinking? Does anybody know?
Well,
Look, a 1% jump isn't really that significant.
I think
to be honest with you. Like I know people think it is, but really, 1% is not insignificant, but it's not that massive. And so even if in another circumstance where the market just sort of gapped up, you'll often see it taper back down during the day. It's not really that big a move as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, but why aren't the markets going crazy for the end of tariffs? Is it because they think that Trump will figure out a way to get them through?
No, I think that there's just uncertainty about what the future and how you can actually tell that is you have a look at the Vega, the volatility price of option series, and you start to see that. Well, the VIX is another way of looking at it. You start seeing that increasing quite significantly. It indicates that there's a bit more concern. You also have to look at things like the shape of the yield curve with the bond markets and stuff like that. The big one is the US being downgraded on its credit rating and bond yields jumping. That starts to make people think, and also some of this doesn't have anything to do with Trump. Some of this has to do with the fact that there's, the flight to safety or the rush to safety. Whenever there's a big calamitous thing occur, for example, COVID, the 2007-8, Great Recession, the 2001, September 11, 2001, that benighted day in our history, the tech boom crashing, the Asian currency crisis, all those sorts of things, when they happen, people rush to buy US securities as a short hold of their money, including US dollars. And what happens is as markets start to stabilize around the world and you start to see growth elsewhere, people start to repatriate that money back to their own countries and start wanting to invest back home and more locally. So I think it's a combination of factors that the US is going through at the moment. Also, it's worth remembering that when Trump was the president before, in his last presidency, or his 45th of that term, the Fed was actually able to start offloading some of the money they had on their balance sheet. And I think they were dropping off like $50 billion a month for a while there. And then COVID hit. So presumably over the next sort of decade or so, as market conditions improve in the US, hopefully, and as inflation comes down, the Fed will be able to offload some of that money because they've been holding it for well over a decade, and it's almost 2 decades now they've been holding a lot of that money, and it's time for them to start getting that off their balance sheet.
All right, so I have a question for you about Africa.
Just really quickly.
Wait, come on. Let me. So racists like to say that Africa is always going to lag because look who lives there, and then other people are saying that Africa is going to be the only continent with net population growth after the year 2050, and that Africa, don't sleep on Africa, that Africa will be the economic powerhouse in the second half of this century. What about Africa?
I think they've got tremendous potential. For a number of reasons, I won't list them all, but one of them is that they are extremely mineral wealthy. The amount of wealth in their soil is incredible. Agriculturally, I mean, people sort of associate Africa with, poor, starving people, and so there's an assumption that they aren't able to produce great food. That's not the case at all. And some of the fruits and tropical fruits and vegetables and things like that grow in Africa are incredible. So I think as they start to expand on those industries, they will do quite well. The biggest issues that facing them is government corruption and interference from wealthy Western countries. And Europe especially, more so than the US when it comes to Africa. Europe especially, I mean, they're taking $10 trillion of profits out of Africa every year, and very little of that money actually goes to the Africans. Now, Africans themselves are trying to change this. They've got a relatively young population. Most Africans that I know, they have kids when they're in their early 20s, so that population grows. They champion things like education. Education is actually a lot more accessible than what you might think. So I think Africa will actually improve, but they do need to get a few things right. And if they can do that, they'll do very, very well.
Hey, Shaquille, that's where I was going earlier before I had some minor internet issues and all along those lines. Because apparently, what Kevin Costner was suggesting was this notion that, and I'd love to hear Nick's thoughts around this as well, and John, is that math people, and you are a math person, I think you would admit that you have a skill set in math, that they naturally will go to math, and that the math doesn't need to be as accentuated as it is in our school system. So he's actually arguing that Trump and others go toward history and learn more about history. So that was one of his arguments that he was making, and he made this on yesterday because he said math people, if there are math folks, are naturally going to find the math courses, whether they're in high school or whether they're in college or wherever they may be. So his exact quote was, "I wish we would have a giant shift in education where history dominated more than math and everything," because he said the people that are really good in math, they're going to search out math anyway because that's who they are. They're just built that way. So as one that is in the
I don't think I'd agree with that, to be honest with you. I think that students would most benefit from more funding for scientific courses and chemistry and physics and biology and all those sorts of subjects. I think the humanities subjects sort of be an optional extra because it depends on what somebody's interested in. And Toby had his hand up, though, so I think he wanted to say so about Africa.
Yeah.
So it wasn't actually about Africa. What I wanted to talk about was, because I know you had mentioned that the stock market went well up under Trump, and you were talking about some other pieces about the stock market. Well, why do we forget that one of the biggest drops in the stock market was during Trump's first term? And also it happened the movement in the market was a direct there's a direct correlation between Trump's policies this time and the drops in the stock market. And so when we talk about COVID, because that was something that wasn't something, well, I mean, yeah, technically he could have controlled a little bit better, but that was something that was out of control or out of his control. But the stock market dropped on that, but it was dropping before because there was actually a big drop then before COVID hit. But during this time, it dropped the same amount or a similar amount than when COVID hit. But this was all due to his policies. So I guess my concern is that we kind of glorify and do this whole lovey-dovey Trump was great in his first term, when there are a lot of things that we've overlooked, the volatility, the chaos, and all the other stuff that did happen then. But now it's being magnified because he doesn't have the reins on him. And the market itself right now is below than when he started. So he hasn't even brought the market back to, where it was on January 20th. And then on top of that, now we have the issue where the markets themselves have coined the taco phrase. So we're having a problem with that, where they believe Trump backs down all the time, or chickens out, as he said. So we have a long way to go with the market. So I just wanted to add that in because there was more context to it.
I'll answer your question as to why I don't go into that, because try as you guys might, I am never going to become a Trump bashing Democrat. Okay, I don't do that.
I'm not asking you.
I was responding to a question that Rick asked me. Okay, and I responded to it in a way that I thought was relatively apolitical. If you guys want to get political, that's up to you. But that's why I answered the question the way that I did. I might also remind you that I was one of the people that, and I'm not trying to say, "Oh, look at me," but you guys don't have much experience in this field. I was the person on this panel who pointed out repeatedly last year that one of the very interesting things that we saw during the COVID years under Joe Biden was that the US managed to get inflation to come down, managed to also have growth, and managed to outperform, towards the end of his presidency, outperform Europe. Now, Europe obviously was affected by the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but even taking that aside, the big question was, for future economists and future generations of economists to examine, is whether or not deficit spending was actually a good idea. Okay? And I gave Biden a lot of credit and a lot of compliments for that. But if you want to be political, you can do so. I'm not going to bash Trump, which is what I think you were trying to get
I'm not asking you to bash Trump. I'm just pointing out, for example,
You just said that Trump's got no brains.
Hold on. As a direct correlation point, that's not bashing Trump. That's actually pointing out a fact of reality. As the coined phrase from the actual individuals on the stock market saying taco, that Trump always chickens out, that's an actual fact. That's a reality that we're having to deal with. That's not trying to be political. That's just pointing out a reality. So I appreciate
the question that I was asked was about the market, right?
I appreciate you being apolitical in that talk, but understand that I'm also being apolitical. I'm just adding extra context for things that are happening. It's not being political. Again,
Jacoby, you just pointed out, you just said to me that Donald Trump doesn't have any brains and he's doing this, he's doing that. Okay. When
I didn't say that.
Go back and rewatch it. That's what you said. Or certainly that's what I heard. When you look at the markets, when you were trading the markets, can I please speak?
But what I want you to do is understand. I did not say no brains and all this other stuff. I just pointed out.
You've now said that 4 or 5 times, and I said, well, that's what I heard. Okay, may I now continue?
Right,
may I now continue, please?
Are not in ruins. The markets are down a few percent from their all-time highs. So yeah, Trump said he's been all over the place on stuff. It hasn't wrecked the markets. The markets are still pretty much okay. I want to go back to Costco.
No, so before we change the subject, I was interrupted. Could I please finish what I wanted to say?
Yep.
Thank you. When you trade the markets, you look through a lot of the noise. You look through and ignore a lot of the headlines that are coming out. When I was on the trading desk, I used to not read today's financial press. I would look at yesterday's or last week's, and I had staff members that would tell me if there was anything that I needed to know about the markets, because that's not what you look at. And especially if you're looking at long-term horizons, if you're investing over 5 years or 10 years, not something that I generally invest for that long, but you look at things totally differently. If you're looking at trading for the next week or the next month, depending on your time horizon, it's going to depend on what you're actually looking at. So a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, Jacoby, and a lot of the stuff with Trump and this and that, it's not really that relevant to how the market is going to react to things.
Well, evidently, it was like this last time it was on this. I just wanted to point out.
I like Costner. I like that Costner is bringing up this point, because it's a point of discussion and debate that we should emphasize history over math, but people can talk about where MAGA and Trump are not setting the terms of the debate.
So
I have something to share.
It is great about history.
I want to share something.
Go ahead, Sri.
Yeah, Nick, you are producer of Pot TV, right? Like, you are the founders and chairman or founder of this Pot TV, right?
Yeah, and what's your question, Counselor?
Yeah, my concern, my comments that according to my commitment in the last episode, I share. I respect everyone. But when I work, I love my work. It's not I desperately love it, but I love my work very well. So last day I shared that Stock Exchange Commission, Bangladesh is not very big, but I promote Pot TV in front of all of the commissioners on Stock Exchange Commission Bangladesh. And me and my institution awarded by Bangladesh Defense, they have a huge contribution what you are discussing in Africa or the United Nations. This is my ethical concern. If my audience, my countries, or this kind of high profile people say every episode, I'm sorry to say, we are just fighting with each other only for Trump, it's not valuable for the audience. That is my concern. If there is any rules for discussions, I want to invite any good rules and regulations. Otherwise, I'm honestly says, if it's continue, maybe I cannot continue more with this kind of discussions. That's all from my side. But this is my ethical concern. I love my work. I love my work ethics. I am very honest and dedicated. So let's say I'm promote your economic shows in front of stock exchange commissions. Chairman, they say, hey, you can fix your economics things, this and that, and they have all of the big companies and all of the things in this ecosystem. But if they say that only we fight, it's not valuable at all. Anyway, I'm sorry about that, but this is my concern.
Okay.
Nick, thank you.
Noted on World Edition.
It's some point I see too much of fights in the content, and it's not intellectual discussion at all.
Yeah, you know
It's very relevant for intellectual discussions. Your audience, yeah.
The World Edition has been traditionally a debate discussion.
Yeah, it's okay, but
not all the shows.
Debate, I'm from debating communities.
You know, so the thing is, I think it would be better for you to be with David Walker, which is less debate oriented. He doesn't do that, and some of our other shows, they're just not debate oriented. This one is. And speaking of it, not that I'm going to debate anything, but I have a client appointment in about 5 minutes.
And it's time to end the show anyway, so we're going to wrap up. And I've got a meeting to get to myself as well, so we're going to wrap up. So another great discussion, and we're ready to come back on a further discussion on this on possibly tomorrow, which will be Friday. But right now, let's get on out of here.